Let's talk to Sam Armstrong now. He's a consultant at the Free Speech Union, a regular friend of the show as well. A very good afternoon to you, Sam.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. Two stories I want to talk to you about. Jimmy Kimmel in a few moments. But first up, let's talk about something happening here. And this is just this extraordinary situation of a man violently attacking another man in the street on camera with a bread knife and not getting a single day behind bars. Tell us about this case and tell us what happened.
Yeah, Musa Kadri is a Muslim man who lives in London, has done for quite a while. He saw late last year another man called Hamit Coskan burning a Quran, as we say he was perfectly entitled to do, outside the Turkish consulate.
We haven't got a blasphemy law yet.
Well, a point that somebody could make to our Prime Minister, perhaps. Yeah. But Musa Kadri saw this, shouted at him, went back into his own house, which was nearby. He got a large bread knife. He came back out of his house over to Hamit Coskan, shouted and swore, saying, "I'm going to kill you," and then repeatedly slashed Hamit Coskan with that knife, punched him, waited until he was on the floor, kicked him again, slashed him again until he was distracted by a couple of bystanders who said, "Stop it, what are you doing?"
Thank goodness.
His motive? This man offended my religion. Now, he could have been charged with perhaps attempted murder, you might think, stabbing someone, slashing at them with a knife.
While saying, "I'm going to kill you." Bit of a clue, I would have thought.
He could have been charged with ABH. Hamit Coskan was severely injured by this attack. He could have been charged with affray. He wasn't. He was charged with common assault. The most
common assault is someone punching someone in a pub.
In fact, you don't even need to punch them. You just need to cause a bit of fear to them. If I square up to you walking down the street on a Saturday night, I should be expected to be charged with common assault. There was a bizarre, inexplicable decision to charge this man with the least serious imaginable offence. Meanwhile, Hamit Coskan, who was prosecuted for burning his own copy of the Quran, well, he was prosecuted by junior Treasury Counsel, the most senior barristers in the country that are meant to be prosecuting murders at the Old Bailey. No, they prosecuted him for a hate crime. By the way, it was never suggested in court that this man had done it for a hateful reason, even though he said the reason he was doing it was to stand up for his religion and didn't like Hamit Coskan's atheism. This was blatant, observable, undeniable, inescapable two-tier justice. There's no other word for it.
No.
And that's even before you get to the fact, that Lucy Connolly spent over a year in prison for an ill-judged but swiftly deleted tweet. Even before you get to those kind of imbalances, the treatment of these two men tells you everything you need to know about the way that the British state operates.
Exactly. So even in the one incident, what they charged, the idea that someone burning their own copy of a book, whatever book it is, I don't want people to burn any books, least of all someone else's religious text, but he was someone I think he was from Turkey, wasn't he, Coskan? He's actually from Turkey himself. He's got every right to do a political protest outside the embassy. That is literally one of the most fundamental rights we've got in this country. And the idea that a man... And he went off to get the knife. He went on, I mean, there was clear intent. It is absolutely extraordinary. Again, the choice of charges and the sentencing is so clear-cut, and we are constantly told there isn't two-tier justice. But what on earth would make a judge think, and we do see case after case after case after case of people who commit crimes, blatant, obvious crimes. There's no he said, she said. It's on camera. If those watching on YouTube, we've been able to see those images. You can go back and have a look on our YouTube page to see them. It's on camera. It is blatantly obvious what happens. It is a miracle that someone didn't die. It is an absolute miracle. And the idea that this man doesn't serve a day behind bars can be nothing other than political, because there's no other reason why a judge would allow that, surely.
Well, unless, I don't think this possibly was the intention, but it's certainly the effect that there is a message being sent to people that if you are a Muslim and you are offended by somebody attacking, denigrating, in some way disrespecting your religion, you can premeditatedly go and get a knife, threaten to stab someone, attack them, and you won't spend a day in prison.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, I don't feel safe on the streets of this country.
If that is the case, but especially again, that doesn't seem to be the case for any other religion or anyone else. And we have got, the defence by the Prime Minister at PMQ some months ago, the idea of there being a blasphemy law. We've had as Donald Trump is pointing out, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, defending Sharia law as an alternative law in our land. We're constantly told diversity, but at the end of the day, we've only got one law in the land. The law does not make it an offence to commit blasphemy. It's not an offence, but it absolutely does seem to think that there is an offence of viciously attacking someone with a knife because you don't agree with something they've said. I would have thought that was pretty darn clear cut for anyone.
Yeah, and I just don't think that anybody doubts for a minute that if the shoe was on the other foot, so to speak, and if this was a far-right individual that picked up a knife and went up to a pro-Muslim stand in a town centre and repeatedly stabbed at them, slashed at them with a knife he'd brought to the scene especially, shouting, "I'm going to kill you," does anybody in this country, come on.
The late Charlie Kirk, prove me wrong. Can I ask you also about that? Jimmy Kimmel, the late-night chat show host on ABC yesterday, he returned after his cancellation. Of course, on the left, it's never a cancellation. It's always just a temporary removal from the channel. And he returned to his show last night, although not all the affiliates agreed to carry his show. And he addressed his comments that he made about Charlie Kirk. Now, you're a free speech union and you're an absolutist on free speech. I'm not an absolutist on this. It seems to me very, very clear it was a contractual matter for him, why he was taken off air. There were, 400 odd of the great and the good, the virtue singer, the Jennifer Aniston, the Robert De Niro's and all that. They signed a letter saying, oh, this is an attack on freedom of speech. They've never cared about anyone they disagree with freedom of speech, never worried about people being cancelled, comedians, actors, singers saying, oh, I'm not entirely sure that men dressing up as women are women. Oh, no, quite happy for them to lose their careers, not a problem. Jimmy Kimmel went on television a week ago, just after Charlie Kirk had been killed, and basically told a lie and claimed that the motivation of the alleged killer was that he was MAGA and he was motivated by MAGA. That was the lie. It wasn't the jokes about Donald Trump that got him taken off air. Do you think this is a free speech victory or not?
Well, look, first and foremost, Jimmy Kimmel is on a regulated television platform, and you are not permitted to lie on non-cable television in America. And he did say, and by the way, he didn't apologise for it last night. However,
he said it was about a joke he made that Donald Trump can't take a joke. That wasn't why he was taken off air.
No, that was in some ways another lie. However, I would warn our friends on the right, anywhere they are, that free speech restrictions are like poison gas. They're an excellent weapon when you're in charge, but when the wind changes, you're going to come to regret them because they're going to blow right over you. And look, there is going to come a time when the Democrats run America again. It's a political reality. And I would warn our Republican friends that if you go down this line of allowing the chair of the FCC, which is a political appointment over there, to kind of bully people off the television you don't like, and there was a bit of that there. Ted Cruz called it mafioso. I think that's right.
Well, he's a Republican senator and probably governor, sorry, and he criticised, he called this out and said it was wrong.
And look, I'm with Ted Cruz on this. I think it was broadly a mistake, but I'm not going to cry particularly over Jimmy Kimmel. As I say, even his apology last night was untrue.
No, indeed. And also, let's face it, this is a man who's repeated. I'm quite happy for him to be back on air. I don't have an issue, but it's between him. Frankly, it's between him and his employers, as far as I'm concerned, whether the ratings are good enough and whether he's worth the millions he's paid. But at the end of the day, this is a man who openly on air and on social media has celebrated every other cancellation when it was with somebody he disagreed with. He's not a free speech campaigner. He's just an ego with an overly paid job. But anyway, Sam Armstrong, great to talk to you. Two big issues there. Consultant for the Free Speech Union. Always appreciate it. See you again next Monday, I hope.